Hey y'all, grown black folks talk. I just did this video and then said that's way too long because I'm combining two thoughts into I don't need no delusional man, but I do need the men who are necessary to my life. And that's too long of a title, and I'll figure out how to clean it up because it's two different ideas. I've been thinking about the difference between men who are essential and necessary versus men who are not needed in the black community. And I thought about this more in light of the continuing conversation with Mr. Henry. Mr. Owen Henry had another comment, which I won't share because it's a follow up on the first one that I did the video on. But he is doubling down on the idea that the black men who were in the army of Kush should be mentioned in the saying that we all got there together. Well, first of all, we all did not get there. And then he made the mistake of saying, well, stop thinking that we I'm like, okay, let me show y'all. Let me show you something, sir. The fact that you told me that you told me on my channel that I should stop thinking anything, but that's not entirely what I want to talk about. What that triggered in my mind is how do we get to these delusional thinking patterns that a black man thinks he can roll up on a random black woman and tell her to do anything? And what that really goes to is how do black men project that they have all this power in the world? And that goes back to what makes for men who are essential and what makes for men who are not. It's very simple, and it actually works for women too. To make a long story short, all children have an amazing ability to project themselves into any situation they're interested in, and they have been given this ability to grow their minds and to find pathways to where they are to go in life. And if they are in communities that are well resourced and in societies that actually care about children beyond their chattel value, their imagination and what they choose to share with us as adults gives us clues into things that we should guide them into, their interest, their gifts, their abilities. If this does not happen, though, for whatever reason, uh, the anger the child is going to feel between what they innately know they are capable and built for and what life provides them is going to become a problem. If you compound that by a missing parent, both missing parents, or sometimes missing parents and grandparents, because the gentleman who got the read, this 35 page, 15-minute read that I told y'all about in The Dark Side of Father and Son, he was raised by his great grandmother, which means his parents and his grandparents, none of them could step up. Actually, his great grandmother, which means his great grandfather in that particular pair didn't either. So that's already 7 people that failed you. And even though he became successful in his own right on his own, they discovered he had a particular talent in a particular field. That need for the validation of all those people and the fact that he knows a lot about a lot of things and is brilliant enough to have improvised the rest, he's a good actor. That's why. But that no one guided him or corrected him when his ego was not as big as it already is what has him out here getting read all up and down the internet. And I mean, being read to destruction. Now, his delusion may be big enough so that it doesn't make any difference. He's just glad to get attention and be going into the YouTube comments and seeing support, which means he will continue along his merry way until he cannot find work in his own field, trying to fight with people in other fields. Because, see, what ends up happening is no matter who you are, if your delusion does not have societal support, and if you're a black man, you can forget it, your path to your deification and enthronement is blocked. Caesar Augustus representatives over here ain't gonna let it happen. Well, you continue to work in your delusions, you're gonna be on the street. And if you stop and you think about this, let's roll it back for just a second. Let's roll it back. Look at the numbers of people in the United States that are homeless and look at how many of those are represented by black men, and you will see that. Because what is happening is if you are not able to be guided and you now hitch your pride to this broken position, even when a little bit later you are in a position to learn, you're going to be stuck looking for that validation. The gentleman who got read for 16 minutes with 35 pages of receipts, what he had been looking for was validation from this older black man. And the older black man corrected him privately, like he would talk to a peer who came with a great idea. This man actually took him seriously and took his time to really go through what this younger man presented him. And this younger man went to talk to a white man and whined. And so the older black man's like, oh, you done drop my name over there? All right, youngster. Now, since you want to do this publicly, I'm gonna have to teach you publicly. And that opened the door to every. I mean, it is an old-fashioned YouTube beatdown. White men are having a field day logging this man up and down. Psychology channels, science channel. It's so sad because I know in my heart of hearts what this man wants more than anything else is for his father or his grandfathers to have done what they were supposed to do and to have allowed him to develop what probably would have been a great scientific mind to because the native ability is there, but because it was underdeveloped. But his delusions, his adult daydreaming, had him trying to put himself at a table that he can't sit at. And when I read Mr. Henry's second comment, the second time, and read him attempting to put the rank and file in the Kushite army into the negotiation room with Queen Amani-Renas and the Caesar Augustus, I realized that's the same thing. It's the same thing. No understanding of the steps between being an everyday person and being in a position of leadership. And then what happens is you get caught out there trying to do that and you get thrown back. I'm going to say this again. A family is a military man, Sergeant Love in the Army. He was drafted, so enlisted. The highest he could have made it as a non-commissioned officer, he didn't stay in that long, is warrant officer. He's a non-commissioned officer. He has a position of command. But he will never tell a second lieutenant what to do because the second lieutenant is a commissioned officer. So first of all, the private, the buck private, the new private who just got through enlisted school is not going to be telling Sergeant Love what to do. Number one, that's not going to happen because time, rank, and experience does not match up. You're not granted those privileges at that level. But we still with enlisted men. And even if one of those enlisted men becomes a non-commissioned officer, he's never going to tell the commissioned officer what to do. A second lieutenant always outranks a warrant officer. That's just the way that is. Now, they're actually pretty close. You know, if there's an emergency, the warrant officer probably has more experience in the field, but there's certain things he doesn't know because the education is different. There's certain scenarios he may not be aware of. Now, he might still go and on his own read a great deal of military history, and he may actually know more about what needs to be done than a second lieutenant, but that's just not how that works. It's just not. The second lieutenant is also not going to be telling the general what to do because even though they are both commissioned officers, the general has time and experience and has proven himself to a level of fresh lieutenant out of West Point has not. The second lieutenant may be more aware of how modern military warfare works than the general. It makes absolutely no difference because there are some experiences that only come and some privileges that only come with a proven track record of consistency and success. It's just simply not going to happen. That's how the world actually works. So it's not the only way the world works because we don't, but we talk in terms of men who compete and compare and love and patriarchal systems love hierarchy. So unfortunately, since you want to compete and compare and love hierarchy, then unfortunately there's a hierarchy of men. You're an employee. You ain't saying nothing to the CEO who ain't saying nothing to the owner. Because everybody, the owner, can fire all of them. Ain't gonna happen. I'm a business owner. uh, Ain't nobody who doesn't own this not saying anything. But at the same time, I better pay business taxes because my ability to own this is dependent on the people that issue the licenses for me to have it. So I'm not gonna boss up on them either. What time do those need to be paid? Okay, what day? Yeah, you're gonna have your money because there's a hierarchy there too. There's a difference in people. There are rooms you get to sit in because you have proven the capacity to do that. And if you've not, you won't. Now you can imagine yourself, you can project yourself as if you should be there. Sure. But then reality hits you. That's how you get in a situation where an older black person is going to take you by the scruff of your neck and spend 16 minutes of their time with 35 pages of receipts correcting your butt and turning you over to get dragged all up and down YouTube. That's how you get into a situation where you come onto a channel that actually was encouraging black women not to just run off with white men. That part was totally missed. And that person ends up making good content and teaches and serves up the foolery for a feast for everybody. Because you did not understand, you just can't go into every room. You can project all you want, but when you get to the door, the people who are on the other side of that door, who have earned the right to be there, determine whether you get in or you get thrown out in the cold. That's how the world works. And so, if black men are struggling with this concept, not all, because there are essential black men. My father, Sergeant Love, my pastor, Eric Holloway, Basso Profundo, Cyrus Webb, media book publicist extraordinaire. I just named four off the top of my head, are all essential men. I could name more. I just have to just go through my list of contacts. But these are all essential men in my life. All of them. There are things that I'm doing now that would be very hard for me to do without their existence. All of them have great respect for black women. All of them know how to be co-laborers. They do not need to try to make chattel of me or the value I bring to the table. And as I was talking to Mr. Webb today, he has a package I would like to purchase, but I said, I can't do that right now because I'm not going to put even you, I'm not going to put myself or you. I respect what you do. So whenever we do a higher level package, I have to have the money to give you your money then. I'm not trying to have you wait out here for all this and then miss a pay. I'm not, no, because I respect our relationship. We're not going to do none of that. Can't do it yet, but I'm coming for it. But I can't do it right now. He and I have no problems. Eric Holloway is out here ministering to the people. Uh, Singer, voiceover expert. If you have anybody in your family who's played Doom Eternal, the one who does the chant for Doom Eternal, that's Eric Holloway, one of the most famous voices in the world. Is also the voice of the released world premiere of one of my arrangements of Negro spirituals. One of the finest singers in the world. If you have not heard his uh, singer from The Greatest Showman, he also has a jazz album coming out. Y'all need to get all that. When it's all available, I'll put it in the description. We'll do a music show because I got my student Stephanie's doing some amazing quick covers, and there's Eric Holloway. We're talking about the men right now. These men are essential to my life in so many different ways. With Pastor and Sergeant Love, I have had the honor of sharing a nine-figure responsibility in my community. And Pastor is the board president. I'm just secretary. I'm fourth in command. I don't have a problem with that. He's a good leader. He's essential to 5 generations of black people. His essentialness does not diminish my essentialness. We're just playing different roles. My essentialness does not diminish his essential. And thank God he's mature enough to know that. And that is the challenge. I don't need no delusional men around me. I don't care what color they are. I don't have use for a poor white version of Donald Trump who thinks he should be running everything by virtue of being white and having a penis. I don't care how much money he has either. If you don't know how to be a good steward, if your whole point of your life is to take everything around you for your deification and enthronement, well, you're still doing what everybody else is doing, getting old, getting bald, getting flatulent, and getting gray, needing Viagra and dying, then you don't need to be thinking you're going to run anything. But if you show me a track record that shows that you've been a good steward, okay, we can at least talk. Shout out to the white men that I work with, too. I don't need that in any color. I don't care whether it comes in beautiful Latino brown, all the wonderful shades of Asian, or in all the wonderful shades of brown that are black. I don't care. No one needs someone in delusion. And see, now here's what happens at the end. And I know delusional black women too, because we get this, we have a whole bunch of little fairy tales of our own that we want to believe, and they really become a problem. And see, what happens is delusional men and delusional women go together and doom their children to repeat this cycle of not having the guidance they need, of having their childhood ability to imagination go into adulthood with them without it being modified by the knowledge and the education and the experience, the guidance and the experience to actually know how to get along in life. But no, Black women entertain a certain number of delusions that go with those of delusional men too. And which is why I'm out here talking about my hypergamy and Black love sisters. Y'all need to get your life together. That's why I did that video that's gotten all this press and all this, all this, that one went slightly viral. That's why I ended up having to do that. Because I recognize we all have a certain number because we've been deprived as a community things that we should have had access to. It breeds that. But if you're not a delusional woman, you don't, well, even if you are a delusional woman, the last thing you need is get a delusional man. I hear so often, this happened recently. So and so, the best rapper, is gonna come up and talk about whatever it was and have some comment like he can project his projection of being the best rapper. I'm like, who would you have to climb over to do that? And if you were, would you have time or even be bothered to be doing this and commenting on this specific issue? So already I already know. But they're gonna try to boss up on the owner of that channel. Got his head handed to him, of course. And see, everybody is not as respectful and gentle as I am. I'm not going to. and she was actually classy about it. But it's just like I thought to myself when I read that, oh, it's a good thing he didn't go over the Confidence with Love channel. It's a good thing, Mr. Henry, that you didn't go over there. Not all Black women are going to be even the least bit tolerant of the foolery because no, we don't need to be connected with any delusional men. Now, delusional does not mean unintelligent. I believe, Mr. Henry, that you are an intelligent man and you understand instinctively that Queen Amani Renas and Caesar Augustus are a match, but there are no Black men in that level of conversation, and that's what you have a problem with. What does tend to happen over time, and if we are in the American context, in white communities, white men have to get it done, the necessities. Generally, they are charged with that. And in Black communities, because so many fathers walk out the door, and really, in previous centuries, white men kind of set this up, and that Black men were only going to be used for studs and were never responsible for the children they had. Those children belonged to white men. That was kind of set up. But be that as it may, it's been 159 years since then. If Black men wanted to change that pattern, they would have, and they still can if they want to. But in the Black community, the person who ended up having to figure out how to make it work was a Black woman. So obviously, as time passes, because again, Caesar Augustus inherited a terrible situation. His father, who had adopted him, Julius Caesar, was assassinated. So there was a civil war. He had to figure out how to win that. And then there was a triumvirate, and that broke down, and he ended up at the top of that and ended up being emperor. Now, his goal, of course, was his enthronement and deification, which he did succeed at, versus Queen Amani Minas, who did not want to be queen and warlord. She lost an eye out there with her husband and her son, backing them up. She lost an eye, but was the one who survived. And then for her nation to be free, had to figure it out. Queen Amani Minas came from a higher plane, though. She did not become queen and warlord to be famous in all of history for being queen and warlord. She did that because, like single Black mothers often have to do, like old Black widow grandmothers and great grandmothers have to do, she had to figure out how the world worked in order to secure her people's freedom. And because she came from a higher plane, she received higher knowledge. Both of those people are necessary to the story of how we have Caesar Augustus has to survive and have the world be taxed, but he has to not tax Cush so that the Bible can say that white people did not bring Black people Christianity, because the Bible clearly says that Ethiopia had a relationship of knowing God way, way, way before Europe did. And that they were looking for the Messiah too. If you read in Isaiah, it's already there. And so when the Ethiopian eunuch found out that the Lord Jesus Christ was Messiah, he went back and told the Candace, the queen of Ethiopia at the time, probably Queen Amani Renas's granddaughter or their granddaughter-in-law. And they found out. Research the history of the Coptic Church. Doesn't have anything to do with the Kori of Ethiopia having done anything. And we have a non-white folk fool around with copy of the Bible. I said in the previous video it was in Kushite. I think it probably was in Amharic by that time in history. But we have unwhite folk fooled around with Bible to compare the accuracy of the Bible with the GEs, to compare with all other translations. At this point, for those of you who really want to study, because of Queen Amani Redox. So both of them were picked for things in plans way, 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 way bigger than any black ruler on earth at that time or since. And black men living today have a problem with it. I understand, Mr. Henry, where you're coming from. Because that doesn't make your path to uh, enthronement and deification in your community any easier. But then that was never your path. That was never any black man's path. That was not my father's path, Sergeant Love's path, Cyrus Webb's path, Eric Holloway's path, Kevin McNeil's path, Deacon Rufus Haynes' path. I mentioned him, Dr. D. Manning Jackson's path, and many, 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 many more that I could mention. That was never the path anyway, because no mortal man shall be God, except the one who is God, always was God, and became man. The rest of y'all ain't gonna make it. And by the way, ladies, don't get excited. Even Confidence with Love, who is a goddess worshiper, says, no, we're human beings, but we can be serving transformational leader. Even she's not giving you a pass. You ain't gonna sit up there on a level. You could have a relationship with goddesses, but you ain't gonna join them like that. You're not gonna ever be a European idea of what the Godhead is, which is good because that's Satan's idea of what the Godhead is to you. That's not going to be it ever. And you know how we know this? Because twice, recorded in both Matthew and Luke, Satan came to Jesus Christ and said, told him all the kings of the world, and said, these things will I give thee if you will bow down and worship me. Well, the Lord Jesus Christ did not did not take it. But if you look at Europe conquering practically the whole world, we already know who did. Augie. But the Lord would not let him get Cush. Cush is the first nation mentioned in scripture, and it will be there among the last. The Lord's just not going to let Satan have it. Nope. And one day, all men failing, he found a young woman named Amani Minas, Her Majesty. That's what happened, y'all. That doesn't stop any black man today from not being the subject of I don't need no man. No, leaders lead. Do what is necessary to become a good leader, a good steward. When you are a single man, let it be that everything you touch, from your schoolwork to your job, make it the best you can. And when people see you doing the best you can, and if you stay humble, men of all races will come and help you. Still, yeah, you're going to meet some opposition. That's part of the package. But men of all races still will find a way to help you. They will. Someone will be sent to help you do that. Eventually, you will find black men that will do the same. A little humility goes a long way. When it comes to when you know that you have a need, go ask and say thank you. When you do this, the groups of the amount of people that you find that are willing to follow you and willing to work with you as collaborators will increase. So you will have equals and you will have people following behind you that want to learn from you. And in the middle of your equals, someone who is on a commensurate level with you, you may find a mate. Now you make it your business to be the best husband. You don't make your wife a married single mother. And she will have respect for you. And if you were married young enough to have children, those children will respect you. And then you will become their father. And then you will be the very best father, and you will do the very best you can to make sure they have, and they will reciprocate your respect. Now, don't miss any steps. If you are dumb enough to want to go marry a woman that is your perfect bitch, if you want to be Kanye West, you're going to get Kanye West results. You need to find a woman who understands her stewardship to be able to make a good match. That's how that works. But see, you're living a completely different kind of life than delusion. Like I said, black single mothers and Queen Amani Renas had to figure, mother to her nation, had to figure out how to make it work on her own because the men failed. A lot of what's going on is that when black men do not learn how to live up to their stewardship, do not humble themselves to go learn as they must, then that gives you a whole lot of women that are going like, well, I've figured out how to get this done with a certain amount of peace. I don't need you coming in here messing it up. But there will always be essential men. And as the beneficial blurred says, beneficial men, they will always exist. They are here among you right now. Go learn from them. Go walk in their footsteps. Queen Amani Minas, Her Majesty, is gone. Caesar Augustus is gone. Every black woman is not looking at the black wife effect and being delusional. Because I'm gonna say this again, ladies, I know you're listening. Notice the white men are putting up the black wife effect based on what they get. Well, black white men have been getting stuff, been talking about what they get from having black women around since our foremothers were imported and enslaved. Notice that a lot of those videos are not showing a mutual leveling up of that black woman. Now, Confidence with Love would probably come here and say, because that's not possible. Okay. Okay. And Caesar Augustus would be like, well, uh, I didn't send her any gold arrows. She just had gold to spare. Well, if you read Genesis chapter 2, you would already know Ethiopia's had gold like from the beginning. But that's a different conversation. Anyway, even Caesar Augustus be like, well, I didn't have the gold to spare. She's sending me golden arrows and talk about, look, Augie, you can even keep them either way. These are yours. I don't need them, but if you come down here trying to act a fool, boy, you will. Yeah, I didn't have it like that. I probably couldn't have leveled her up. I'm just saying. Okay, I know what my Cold War auntie would have said there, but I'm just saying there's not even an effort, which means that these white men are also insufficient and also delusional because they think that black women still exist to level them up only, which means basically still looking at you as a slave. They're delusional too. They're not going to be enthroned or deified either. You've seen some of the videos how these men start. I'm like, if this is who you fundamentally are, you're not going to be on the throne of it. You ain't figured it out by that big age. No, nobody needs to entertain any delusional men of any color. And if you are a man, well, what about delusional women? No, see, what you're going to do is when you stop being delusional, your circle will change. And ladies, when you stop being delusional, your circle will change. My circle is almost completely non-delusional men. Now, I have made some allowances for one thing. I had a black man of 60 who's 63 now tell me, he said, you don't understand what it's like to be a black man in America. And I am always frustrated when a conversation starts like that because I'm almost certain I'm going to hear some kind of excuse, but no, it wasn't. It was actually very deep wisdom. He said, remember, in my age group, we are just at the beginning of civil rights. So many people are telling you that you can't. And I was the son of a single mother. And so few people are giving you guidance that if you're going to believe you're going to be anything with nobody helping you and nobody telling you that you can, you almost have to be overconfident. You almost have to be delusional to think that you can make it under those circumstances. I thought about what he said, and I know what his personal path is to where he is now. And I make a certain allowance for that perhaps being the case. I've never been a man. But would I marry him? Would I do permanent business with a man like that? No. Mm-mm. No. Because here's the problem. I mean, just I'm generalized. He and I have actually done different levels of business, and like I said, he's past that stage of his life. But if he was still in that stage of his life that he was talking about, he's 63 now, so he's past that stage of his life. He matured. He said, "I sought knowledge of who I am and who my people are and who black women are and who black men are. I don't have a problem with black women leading because I see that that's necessary, and I saw my mom have to do it all." He's matured, but in that stage of his life that he was in, that overconfident with nothing to back his stage, oh no. No. I I just skipped all those other words because I remember the time I was Sunday school. I'm a Sunday school teacher, but no, we not about no. But I had to look at it from that perspective for just a minute. As I say, the situations that we grow up in lend themselves to little girls having to figure out too early how to make everything work around them. And lend themselves to little boys thus not having to do that, not having a way to know how, and therefore being able to live in their daydreams longer. And if they're coddled for too long, then they're going to get broken in the world when reality hits. And then you take brokenness and you don't have means to heal and you don't know how, and you pile that in with that ego, and it just cycles. It just cycles. And eventually it breaks you down to the point that you are no use to yourself and you cannot even meet your own needs, much less of being any use to anyone else. The homeless numbers for Black men in America and the homeless numbers for Black men in San Francisco, and to realize that these men are, even if we can get them off the street at this point, and all the self-medication and everything else that happens, even if we can get them off the street at this point, the damage is so severe. It would take everything for that man to go through the process of becoming self-sufficient again, to say nothing of being of any use to anybody else. It's tragic. It's not something that I know there are Black women, well, that's their karma. I'm a Christian, I don't believe in karma. So because I don't believe in karma, I do understand though that you can be turned over to suffer the consequences of your own sins in this life. I know men who died horribly, disrespecting Black women and being turned over. I've seen that with my own eyes. I believe that every individual is going to deal with their consequences. But I also believe that because God is gracious and merciful, that people can be redeemed. But just because you are redeemed does not mean that if you have wasted more than half your life being delusional, not listening, not being guided when opportunities came to you, and trying to self-medicate and trying to delude other people as you are deluded and taking advantage of Black women, that doesn't mean those consequences are going to go away. You may be saved, redeemed, and glad enough to get to heaven not smelling like smoke, and glad enough not to die by yourself in a horrible position before going. Glad enough to be allowed to be in congregation with men like my father and Sergeant Love. That's where you may find yourself. And the same thing can happen to Black women, except here's the difference. Black women tend to form community among one another and help each other out. Yeah, I have known Black women who are about this far out, but it's much, much more rare. Because again, just like Queen Amani Renaissance did not think she needed to take Sicily as her consolation prize for losing her husband and her son, she was content to just rebuild what she rightfully had, Kush. And she did such a fantastic job that Ethiopia has never been colonized by Europeans. Not then, not since. Black women are generally not on the deification and the enthronement train that European men and their Black think-alikes are on. So we don't usually get broken to the same extent, nor are we subject to, unfortunately, no, fortunately for Black women, unfortunately for Black men, nor are we subject to the complete abandonment that comes at the end. Normally not substance. Black women actually usually don't die alone. It does happen. I know a few cases, but it generally does not happen. It doesn't have to happen for anyone, but no one needs a delusional man or woman. At some point, you have to humble yourself, be willing to do what you need to do, to learn what you need to learn, to get to the position you are supposed to get to in life. You need to learn how to collaborate. You need to learn how to learn humbly from other people. These are all things that are necessary. Do y'all know, just to give you an example, I had to listen to a whole lot of people who don't believe the same thing that I do about the value of anything, but they had this particular knowledge. and I wanted to understand it for myself. And then later, I had such a large knowledge of what was going on from what I observed and how I learned how to do different things that I was able to give that. I managed to find someone I agreed with, and that would be me, who ended up becoming an everyday knowledgeable person on this subject. But I had to humble myself and put up with people who did not have the same view of the world. A lot of people in crypto are, let's just say, men who are trying to live out their fantasies of ruling the world with Bitcoin. There's a fair number of men like that in there. I've met my share. Of course, now, meeting me on that particular day was like, you were minding your own self business. And then January 1st, whole bunch of these guys were over on Hive talking about what they were going to do. And because Queen Amani Renos was not available, I rolled up on them. Sitting up there talking about, well, we aren't running a charity. And we just gonna take all these mere content creators off the first layer and just pay them. I'm like, oh, you want me to list the tokens that y'all done put together and it failed? Do y'all need me to get on here and do that? Cause I can't. What you mean? Every time I didn't say white boys, I said because it's not just American white boys. Every time it's the same thing. Y'all see the members of the global South, Africans and South Americans, and members of the African diaspora doing all this work to make your stuff look pretty, and y'all just keep on acting like we do not deserve the rewards of our work. Now we came over here because we said that Hive was someone we were not doing business like colonizers, and here y'all are. So they knew that I could read them their whole life story. And then one of them was like, well, I don't believe in subsidies. And I don't think businesses should function. I'm like, do you even know how the bread, the milk, and the eggs get into your refrigerator? If you don't believe in that, how are you planning to eat? Like I said, Her Majesty was not available. And since Her Majesty has not been available for 2,030 years, I had to go up and do some business, even on my writing platform, because things have not changed all that much. But the reason I could do that is because I humbled myself and I learned. I learned what crypto was about and how it's supposed to work so that when the day came, I could step into the room with those big boys and be like, hey, I'm a big black girl. You're not about to do none of that. That's why I took the long, humble steps and, like Queen Amani Renas, beat them at their own game. It was a process. There was no black man around the diaspora available. I would prefer not to have done that. I made some serious enemies. But I've also gathered myself sufficiently like, what y'all gonna do? I don't have to even look at you to make money now. I don't have to hit a keystroke with y'all anymore. Excuse me? You gonna do what now? Uh-huh. You guys need to be the 10th chapter in this book way more than I need y'all to be in the 10th chapter. You gonna do what now? There's a whole process in life about how you get your credit up and your weight up and your consistency up to be able to walk in on European men and do that. But like I said, Her Majesty wasn't available. I was. So I had to take care of business. And when you become a steward of the people around you to make sure that women and children and people in poor countries that look like you're the one who can do it. You become who you need to do it. Now, any black man can. As it turns out, there's a black man named Mr. Collins. And Mr. Collins and Mr. McSam, they are African men of the diaspora who are living in England right now. They have been using Hive to dig boreholes to bring clean water back to different villages that were where they grew up. So what they are using is the power of Hive to keep people in clean water. There are some powerful black men on that platform. They were not available at that time of the day. They were out here trying to figure out how are we going to dig this 15 borehole. So I'm not even, because again, they have understood the assignment. They just couldn't get there that day. They just couldn't get there that day because they talk smack about the boreholes too. I'm like, excuse me, you said what? So that I went and made sure I had them black men's back too. That particular individual. Who said that? That's another wannabe white man. We're gonna do a video about wannabe white men. He don't know it yet, but I got stuff for him. His day is coming. I got, see, I'll be over here just, oh, you said what now? Oh, we gonna do this? You said you were gonna do what on what day? You gonna sit up here and talk against these Africans? Okay, you said what about the women and children wearing? And you supposed to have this done by what date? And we done given you how much? Okay, okay. I leaders lead. We got to do what we got to do. And what we do not need in those environments are delusional people who are daydreaming that they can be there and call shots. No, I can call shots because I've been through all the steps necessary to call shots in those environments. And that's what everybody has to do. You have to stop being delusional and do the work you need to do. Because, see, here's the other thing. Because what happens is people on the other side of those doors, you can project all you want. When you show up, like the poor gentleman who got the 15-minute read and the 35 pages of receipts and is getting beat all up and down YouTube. The people who are actually belong there, the older black brother with the receipts, all he did was bless, block, and change them locks. That's all that happened there, y'all. I'm telling you. That's how it rolls. And I don't want that to happen to anybody. Nobody needs a delusional black man or a black woman like that. Because the problem is the delusions. Shed your delusions and do your work. Get your lives together. All right. Y'all have a good day now. Goodbye. And actually, am I gonna post this up tonight? Yeah, I think I will. Maybe. If you see it tomorrow, it'll be either tonight or tomorrow. You'll see it. Have a good night or good morning. Bye.